Oh, yeah.
Bonus! Hello, podcast family. This is your unoriginal host, Afton J. Thanks for tuning in to our bonus clips. During this extra time together, I'll share interesting interviews and information that didn't make it into the final episodes. During the creation of each episode, there is always so much extra material, and I want to share it because it's really interesting. But unfortunately, sometimes we just don't have time, or there wasn't a place for it in the final cut. These bonus episodes are created to help you learn and laugh a little more. I hope you enjoy. These clips are all from the God Bless You episode. We talked about medieval origins of the idiom, evil spirits, superstitions, and exorcisms. This first clip comes from a conversation I had with a paramedic and fireman. He has over 15 years of experience with saving lives and experiencing death. His outlook on evil spirits and the dying is profoundly interesting. Most of us will never experience anything like what he does on a daily basis. I'm thankful for people like him and for the perspective he's able to give us. Next, we'll talk to an Episcopalian Reverend that has been ordained for over 23 years. He's able to give us some information about the ritual of exorcisms, and we talk to him about the existence of evil spirits. These interviews helped with our research of the episode, but are not featured in the main episode. You can only find them here in our bonus clips. The God Bless You episode. Do you have any superstitions that have to do with evil spirits, ghosts, or death?
I don't know about superstitions. I have like a metaphysical theory that like all we are, so like when I pronounce a person dead, the only difference between them now and them 10 minutes ago before they were dead is electricity. It's just energy. I'm not talking about like mystical energy or like theoretical, like actual electrical activity. Like that's really the only difference between a live person and a dead person is real measurable electronic activity, energy. And I think sometimes it is possible that that energy sticks around or gets caught in the environment and the matter around it. And I've never had any, like, I've had a few experiences at work, but yeah, I don't think it's as simple as like ghosts, like that person's, consciousness gets trapped. But I do think it's entirely possible that like that person's energy, good or bad, gets caught in a place to where that place feels funny for others who are still alive or feels good.
Interesting. Have you, so you said that you have stories from work. Like what kind of stories do you have about that? I think that's super interesting. Because I totally forgot that you like literally are there at the moment of the things and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, I worked in a psychiatric facility, basically as muscle. So when people would lose their mind and needed to be restrained or put back in their rooms and stuff. And so if we're going to talk about like demonic or like spiritual or like weird shit, if I can just call it that, like saw a lot of weird shit, right? Where people would be acting like you would see in like, take any good exorcism movie. I think a lot of that, like people were on drugs, a lot of it's mental illness. Every once in a while you'd have something where someone would really be putting on a good show, like a Hollywood quality exorcism act where you're like, I don't know, this one might be legit. There might be something else here. But it's hard to tell, right? Like it's hard to tell. I mean, you get someone who is on meth or any number of like, psychedelic drugs and is hallucinating, like who knows what the body says and does. But, I remember one where we got called in the middle of the night to this apartment and, I walk up and there's a couple big cops outside the front door and they look nervous. Like they look like they didn't like whatever they saw in this apartment. And so I walk up, I'm like, hey, what's going on? And I remember this one cop just looks at me and goes, you just got to go see it, dude. I was like, okay. So I walk up the stairs into the apartment, and there's two more cops in the living room, and they have two, probably like 18-year-old kids sitting on the couch, and they're interviewing them, and the kids both look like shook up. And so I asked one of the cops, and I'm like, hey man, where are we going? He goes, back bedroom. So I walk into the back bedroom, and there's this girl laying on the floor of this apartment bedroom that's got all this like weird gothic, decorations and Slipknot posters and pentagram shit in the apartment, which isn't, abnormal. But she's laying on the ground, and she's like soaking wet, like she had just like gotten out of the bathtub. So my first thought as a paramedic is like, okay, did she fall in the shower? Is there any mechanism of injury here I need to be worried about? And if she's soaking wet, was she in the shower, and did she fall? And so I had my partner go look. He's like, shower's dry, dude. Like, there's nothing in here, to explain all like why she's like soaking wet. And so she's laying on the ground. She's on her back, and she's like slithering is the only way I can put it. Like, she's on her back, and she's like moving in this weird like S formation on the ground, and she's counting on her fingers. She's got her eyes shut, and she's counting on her fingers, 1 2 3 4 5 6, 1 2 3 4 5 6, and she's like with both hands, like finger to thumb, 1 2 3 4 5 6. And now I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And it's like dark in the room. The only light in the room is like a little lamp on a table, right? There's like curtains over the windows, and it's like 2 a.m, like it's nighttime. So it's a little weird, right? But really not out of the realm of like shit we see. People get high and do weird stuff. But so I kind of like bend down next to her, like not close enough for her to like reach up and scratch me across the face, like sometimes they do. But I kind of kneel down next to her, like, hey, my name's Tony. What's your name? To kind of see if she's responsive. And she just doesn't do anything, doesn't say anything. And I'm like, hey, you need to talk to me. Your friend's called 911 for you. I need to know what happened. And nothing. She just keeps doing her weird shit. And so I was like, eventually I was like, all right, well, we can't stay here all night. We got to get her up on the gurney and take her over to the hospital and, see what happens. Well, so it's me, my partner, and 2 cops in the bedroom. And I said, okay, I'm going to grab your hand. I'm going to help you up. And the plan is to kind of sit her up and stand her up. And we have to walk her out because we can't get the gurney up the stairs into the apartment. And I grab her hand, and mind you, she's laying flat on her back. I grab her hand, and she stops counting, squeezes my hand, and from like if you were to pick up a shoestring laying on the ground from the center, she started to raise up from like the waist up to where her feet and her head were still on the ground, but she started to like raise up like she was levitating from the center. So now I'm like, ah! Like the cops are like, hell no, and they like step out of the room, and my partner's just standing there, and she like does this gravity defying like standing up move where she just floats up from the center. Feet are on the ground the whole time, but she just like floats up, and she's still got my hand, and she like stands up, and then now we're standing kind of eye to eye, and she just opens her eyes and looks at me, and I was like, don't move. Like, because I don't know, like in my head she's still just on drugs, right? But I'm like, don't move. So I kind of turn her around at least where she's facing away from me. I'm like, we're gonna walk downstairs. And just creepy looking, long, stringy black hair, mascara running down her face, like soaking wet, that we still can't figure out how she got soaking wet from head to toe. And I walk her downstairs and hand her off to the other 2 medics at the bottom of the stairs. I was like, just restrain her. Like, just restrain her, I walk back up into the apartment and to talk to her friends that were in there. And I walk in, I'm like, what the hell happened? Like, I'm still not even sure why you guys called 911. Like, what was the reason for the original call? And this kid, like, they didn't look like they had been drinking or doing drugs. And I asked them, they said they hadn't. I was like, why did you guys call? And he just looks at me and goes, dude, I don't know how to explain it other than she just climbed up the wall. I was like, she did what now? He goes, she started acting really strange earlier. She's into a lot of weird stuff. We went in her bedroom because we heard these weird noises. And she like growled at us and climbed up the wall and was on the wall up by the ceiling. And we freaked out and called the cops. I was like, okay, I'm the fuck out of here. Like, I wasn't, part of me was like, go look at the wall, dude, see if there's any like marks on the wall. But I was like, no. I'm out of here. So like, here's the thing, like, and I've had a lot of weird calls over the years where like people have claimed stuff like that, or people have like talked in the third person like they are a demon at me, and a lot of it I think is just drugs. But every once in a while I've wondered, like, I don't know, dude, that was really good that was like an Oscar-worthy demon performance. And is there something in there? I don't know.
I'd say hell no.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, like, you can't leave though. You can't be like, okay, I'm gonna leave now. Like, they called 911. You got to handle whatever that shit is, and then you can leave.
But I feel like if someone's crawling on the wall, that's like a good excuse to be like, I'm sick, I'm going home, I quit.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, superstitions about death. I don't know. I've watched so many people die that I don't know. I tend to think that, hey, we're at some point there's a spark of life that innervates you and it sticks with you your whole life. And, you know, like, I could do an EKG on you right now and show you the electrical activity moving through your heart. It's not something that's hard to explain or see. Like, right now, I could just put some stickers on the outside of your body and hook it up to a little computer, and it would show the electrical tracing that is moving through your heart. And we can do the same thing with the brain. It's right there. It's literally right there. And then
a tangible thing.
It's very tangible. It's very, I mean, shoot, a lot of times if that electricity isn't moving appropriately through the heart or the body, I can put pads on someone and defibrillate them, or use electricity to correct that electrical activity in the heart. So it's very basic, and we've known about it forever. It's not a new thing. We've known about electrical activity in the body forever. It's just so strange that it's just gone.
Out.
And that's what dying is from a clinical perspective. Is the one, I have to do a few things to pronounce someone dead, but the one definitive is sustained asystole, or a flat line. And that is, you know, after that goes on long enough, you are clinically dead. If it happens at all, you're dead. Your heart isn't beating, but that electricity leaves and you're dead. So as far as superstitions, I don't know. It's so weird because I think death is such a mysterious thing to most people. We create a lot of superstition about it. Kind of like Bigfoot. Like, if you saw Bigfoot once a week, it'd be like, it's just a big hairy dude, you know, but he's not. So there's all this mystique around it. I sort of have a very pragmatic look at death, where I'm like, it's when I've seen it so much, there's not a lot of mystery around it. It doesn't scare me. I've sat, you know, I sit and babysit people until the coroner shows up all the time, where I've spent hundreds of hours, like, standing in rooms with dead bodies waiting for the coroner to come get them, to where I don't know. I think the superstition's kind of gone for me. I think most of the superstitions about death have to do with how rarely people actually see it, especially nowadays.
Yeah, that's all I've got for you.
Cool. I like it.
Thanks. I really appreciate everything. I really appreciate the perspective. I didn't even think about the perspective of, like, well, this is my job and I do this all the time. So, like, I don't have a superstition because I literally have no mystery to it. Like, that's very interesting perspective on it.
Yeah.
If having to deal with life and death every day is not hard enough, you then have people crawling up the walls on top of it. To all of our men and women first responders, thank you so much for being there in our times of need. You truly are our heroes. Another difficult job deals with our spiritual life and death. In this next clip, the Reverend and I talk about what it's like for him to be a spiritual leader and what it's like to feel evil spirits. With the God bless you episode, I think we talked about it, like, hey, why do you say God bless you? It actually comes from the Pope. And then, but there are, like, different religions and cultures that think that, hey, like, if you sneeze, then, there might be an evil spirit, or, like, the dark, like, your soul could come out of your body. And so that episode gets into exorcisms, which I thought was really interesting because not a lot of people know or understand about it. Like, they've seen it in movies, but it's actually, like, a growing thing within the Catholic Church. The article that I was reading said, and this comes from, like, a Roman Catholic Diocese of Columbus. He's a priest in Indiana. And he says that in 2005, there were 12 Catholic priests in the United States that did it. Today, there's over 150. And that's just because more and more people who believe that they're dealing with demonic are asking for this particular practice, which I thought was super interesting. And obviously there's two sides of that coin. You've got the minor and the major exorcism, and they're not all, like, head spinning and pea soup spitting out the mouth exorcisms. So I didn't know if you had any historical, cultural, or personal information about exorcisms that I can either use to explain it or research it, or if you knew anything about it. I don't know if that's really a thing maybe in your lane of faith, but.
Sure. Your question prompted me to do a little research, and what I learned was, as liturgy, as the practice of worship developed over the centuries through the church before the Protestant Reformation, that exorcism was part of the rite of baptism, and there would be an exorcism that would take place before a baptismal candidate could be baptized. And it wasn't the head spinning pea soup kind of a thing. It was kind of a recognition of the reality of spirits in the world, and it was a rite of cleansing.
My research says the same thing. Yep, that's exactly like what most exorcisms, the minor is just prayers to break the influence of evil and sin in a person's life when preparing for baptism, or if you just need that kind of like, boost of like, oh, we're just going to kind of like exorcise you. You've had a lot going on. Like, you're good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And gradually it faded out of practice over the years. And then what I hear you saying is it seems to be making a resurgence in the Catholic Church. It's not so much in our brand of Protestantism. That's not something that's really going on. I know that in more Protestant churches, particularly when you get into the Pentecostal churches, there's a lot of practice of exorcism, and they believe very much in evil spirits, and that they are part of what is wrong with us and wrong with the world.
How do you sense that somebody is evil or that there is evil around? Have you actually felt that before?
Yes, on a few occasions. That sense of you're in a location, like you're downtown for something, and it's out of the norm for you, so you're a little more attentive than you are normally, and you take a wrong turn, and all of a sudden your senses go on high alert, and you're like, wait a minute, this is not a safe place for me to be. It's that same sense, but spiritually rather than physically, of wait a minute, something's not right here. And we actually hear about it all the time. Particularly women are more attuned to it than men. And that sense of danger, which a lot of it goes back, right? It goes back to our brains and physical input and stimulus and response and all that kind of stuff. And lots of times we ignore it. And you need to recognize that feeling in your gut and don't just brush it off. You need to be very aware of what's going on.
Yeah, I as a woman especially, I feel that physically a lot. You're right. I do feel that physical energy of this is not a safe place for me to be, or physically around that person. I guess I've just never thought about it. If you are spiritually empathetic, you might feel that spiritually.
Yeah, so it's the exact same thing, but on a spiritual rather than a physical level. And it can contain some physical stuff too, right? I mean, certainly that's something for all of us.
That guy is creepy.
Yeah. And it's not even we like to think, oh, well, predators look like this. No, they don't. They feel like this. And lots of times we can, if we pay attention to those feelings, we can go, there's something just off here. And as a priest, who part of my charge as a priest is the care of the people in my congregation, I have to pay attention to that. I have to pay attention and say, wait a minute, there's something off here. And this person may be a predator, and I need to be wary of that and find out what's going on. Why is this setting off my alarm bells. There have been a couple of times in my life when I've had an experience of somebody and just gone, there's just something wrong. There's just something deeply, deeply wrong here. I've had some experiences happen more than once of meeting people and it's that sense of this isn't just a predator, but this is somebody who doesn't want to be, who's broken and revels in it.
Yeah. The difference between the people that make bad decisions because they're trying and make bad decisions because it just comes from a different place. Some people just want to watch the world burn.
Yeah. And it's hard for the rest of us to understand that, but they do. We have adopted humanist materialism as our philosophy, post-enlightenment, as our understanding and primary worldview. And I think that when we do that, a natural consequence of that is that, evil has a better opportunity to grab a foothold. C.S. Lewis, who was an English theologian and author, he said that there are two mistakes. There are two equal and opposite mistakes we can fall into when it comes to the devils, and that's lowercase d. It means evil spirits. One is to, and I'm messing up the quote, you can find the quote somewhere, but it's essentially one is to be fascinated by them and to be drawn into them, and the other is to disbelieve in them entirely. And we as Western people, for the last, I don't know how long, probably since the Enlightenment, have really erred on that other side of disbelieving. And when we do that, it creates opportunities for evil to grow in the dark, because that's what evil does. So I, as a priest and a Christian, I absolutely believe that there are evil spirits and that they mean human beings nothing but pain and hatred and suffering and destruction. And that part of what we do as Christians is reject that and work against it.
Thank you so much, Reverend. Really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. Right back at you. It has been a joy for me to visit with you and to get to know you a little bit. And I'm interested to see how your podcast comes together. And I will look forward to for you and I to have some more conversation.
That's a wrap for today. I'll leave you here with these intellectual snacks to think about. And you can tell me what you think by leaving us a comment on the podcast or sending us an email to myunoriginalthoughtpodcast@gmail.com. I want to hear from you. And as always, like and subscribe to the podcast so you'll never miss a new episode. We'll see you next time. And as always, keep being inquisitive.